get going. I have so many questions because I was actually thinking about I moved to Oregon from California, and Susie Bright, who you probably all know, I used to work at a Clean Well Place for Books. She used to come and do events at the store, and I remember this whole thing about body permission and who has permission. And she told a story where she was there was an attempted rape, and how that attempted rape ruined her rape fantasies, right? So where's the permission, right? Like, she gave herself permission to have those fantasies, and then they were ruined. And I mean, you're right. It's memory. It's so, yeah. So I will be quiet now and let Lidia continue. But yeah, I think this is so important. It's such an important conversation to have especially with the kids as they're coming up. We employ teenagers at the store. I'm not going to make them watch the replay, but I would like to.
That's
I'd only say smart things from now on.
Luckily, that other stuff. That's such an interesting territory of complexity, though. But a lot of your essays and performances ask readers or viewers to enter a space between binaries, or like right, wrong, good, bad, etc., or consensual trickiness and violence, and so it gets back to that amazing thing I witness in your writing and in your performance, where I'm in my body differently because you're drawing out what you were talking about before. I'm being asked to be in my body differently and to suspend my weird righteous judgy or in cerebral commentary on things, and I love that about your work. I truly love it.
Thank you. I think there's something really generative about at least for small moments feeling disturbed and turned on and thinky all at once. Like I think that's a generative trifecta. Like, I'm upset, but I'm kind of hot for this, and I'm thinking it through. Like that's a trifecta I try for as well.
I was going to say, I've hit that trifecta in your work many times, both when you're performing and on the page in this actual book. Many times, many of the essays. Was there any essay in the book that was just a kick in the, like, funny, fun kick in the pants to write?
Yeah, actually, there. This sounds so silly, but there's an essay about sexual harassment, about street harassment in here. That I just love the absurdity of things. That sometimes, like, it is just genuinely absurd. Like, this man is following me and thinks that in some reality I should, like, walk off of a path with him into the woods and do what? What do you think is going to happen? It's like I mean, I don't know. That's humorous and not humorous, and obviously the essay goes all of those places.
Yes,
but,
it does. Yes.
but yeah, that made me laugh too, and also because I am writing about myself a lot, hopefully as a portal for people to think about their own situated stories.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've gotten to maybe an age is what I mean, or maybe it's an attitude that I've gotten to, where my responses sometimes to public tomfoolery are also funny because I'm just not in the mood anymore for any of that.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's humor that genuinely does come up in the everyday stupidity of misogyny.
Well, when you thread humor through your performance and textual work, I mean, it's also a way for the reader or audience to breathe in and out of the chuckle, even as you could hit another area of the performance or text where it's, getting your pathos in your throat or your chest. I guess that's why I'm hitting my chest. But now I got to ask you about our ages. This is, I mean, I've been, it's all over the place in the discourse that we are the ages at which all the F's drop off. I won't say, in case you don't want that recorded, I don't know.
Oh, we're open.
We're in the age zone, supposedly, where the fucks begin to drop off. Are you experiencing that? It relates to what you just said. Are you finding kind of a new zone of, I just don't care about that anymore. I don't have time or energy.
Yeah, I am. I think I've always had a little bit of that. I mean, maybe a little bit more of that than some other people. Also, there's another thing, which is like, you know, the way that we study the world early on, our professions, maybe I want to say that, right? Whatever profession you end up in influences you, right? And so, like, I have the training as a sociologist, right? That's the thing that I don't do work as a sociological researcher anymore, and I haven't for a while. I mean, I used to, but I haven't for a while. But there really is still part of me that looks at the stuff going on around us as like, huh, what is actually happening here? So I've often been told by friends or family that sometimes, like, I'm responding to things as an outside commentator rather than as a person who's like hurt or you know, affected by like not being liked. Like, you know, a lot of times I feel the oh, it's not nice not to be liked. I don't actually care that you don't like me, but it isn't nice. I mean, it's not, you know, oh, now I'm a fat, ugly bitch. Really? Oh.
Bless your heart.
That's not nice. But I'm also not attached to your view of me. You know, in that moment, I'm referring to, of course, the thing that men do over and over, which is, hey, beautiful, talk to me. Hey, would you? You're ugly anyway. You know, that thing, which everyone has experienced.
But I mean, the judgment of the younger kids too, though, right? Like that judgment from that younger generation. I was at the dog park and didn't correct. I asked a young woman, could you call your dog because your dog is harassing my dog? And she called me a fat old cunt. And I had to like walk away and cry off the trail. Like
it's jarring.
It's jarring. Like
it's jarring. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
crazy. I'm so sorry. And you know, that, well, look, to me, that is indicative of the overall violence of the world that the culture that has been created and that has really ramped up, I think, the overall violence of our language in public, the lack of civility, the factioning that has become more normalized. To me, that's what that stuff is indicative of. That, you know, because as a young person, I couldn't have formed my mouth to say that to a stranger in a dog park. But we have a different culture right now. We don't have more horrible humans. I think we have a different culture that is accentuating those things, but we can just as easily, and you know, I feel like this is my life's work. Can we remember we're creating the culture? Like that is literally what we are doing every moment of every day, is creating the culture. And so I don't know, I think sometimes it's helpful to remember that bad behavior is usually a reflection of, you know, some other layer of, I mean, sometimes maybe it's personal, but it's not usually.
No, and that's so important to speak to and think about and write about and educate each other about, because, you know, you can walk around so isolated at this point in time with everything that's going on, thinking that people, so-and-so is a demon seed, when really we are creating the conditions every second of the day and night that make the hard or difficult or terrible things happen. And again, a strength of your work is you ask the reader to stand in different positions of the story. But this, your question or your story, Christine, reminds me too of, Kimberly, can you talk a little bit about, so you've been doing some stealth teaching in small media bursts. And can you talk about, like, I find them profound and I steer people to them all the time, but why did you start doing that? What's going on there? You
mean the little short videos? So like, look, I'm on the TikTok now with the little short videos. Like I'm not succeeding at it yet. I bet, you know, like I don't have, you know, like some people get on there and have like 1 million followers next month, but you know, that's not happening. But you know, there was like 1,000 followers in a month, and people seem to like the little videos. During the pandemic, right, I have been trying to figure out, so how do I move more of what I'm doing online?
Right.
And you know, and so in certain ways, doing that with teaching, you know, well, like the memoir class that I've been teaching for corporeal, is the sort of thing that I used to do in like a whole one-day visit. Let's cram all of this in, because I would be traveling and I'd be in Cleveland one day, and so we're going to do this thing in one day. And I started thinking, like, wow, wouldn't it be better to take this content over like 4 Saturdays? And, you know, what would that look like if it was the same kind of, so in some ways, I think the internet is really useful. And maybe because of the cultural zeitgeist, and people are used to looking at these things for little bits of time, maybe there's something there too. And so, I don't know what I'm doing, you know, but and you'll notice too that like those little videos are not using all of those editing functions. Every once in a while, I get curious and I'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna make my eyes purple. Let me talk like that for a minute," like you know. But really, I'm not using the editing function. But there's also something that I feel like I'm getting from it, which is having to think, like at first I couldn't do it. A minute. What do you say for a minute? But then I started like breaking down, like, what are the actual building blocks of this thought or of this theory or of this point that I'm trying to make? And then how do I make that point?
Yeah.
Instead of this other one. And maybe I'm learning something from that. I don't know. I feel like I'm not committed to this. I'm trying it out. So, you know, but I think it's been useful.
I do too. And that's why I use the phrase stealth teaching, because I think you've hit on a way to infiltrate the masses and all the stuff they're doing on social media with these like bites of wisdom that I just find it delightful, and that you're kind of like a bandit of some sort. I love it. Absolutely love it.
You know, I because I was so trying to get us going, I actually meant for you to read from the book a little bit. So we're at 4:40. Would you like to read and then 10, 15 minutes at the end for questions?
Yeah, that's great. You know, I'm going to read part of an essay, since we already talked about the one about street harassment, and because I'm going to read a funny little section from that. How's that?
That sounds great.
So this is an excerpt from I Said No in 3 Languages. And I've sort of already been talking in this essay about performative niceness, which has its functions, right? Sometimes it gets you not killed to be performatively nice for a little while. But then there's also times that I'm out of fucks, as we have been discussing. So the farmer's market is less than a mile from my home. Though this is my story, different versions of it play out regularly. They're happening now to someone. They will keep happening all day. all around the world, and they will happen again tomorrow. As I leave the market on foot with my bag of vegetables, a man, perhaps in his late 20s, walks next to me a few feet away. He seems stoned. He is giving me the look and keeping pace with me. He begins talking, mumbling, gesturing with his chin toward my body and my face as he speaks. It goes something like this. Mumble, mumble, hot, sexy, mumble, slurp, like to get a taste, mumble, mumble, slurp. I pause and say, excuse me, I can't hear what you're saying. Are you trying to speak to me? He nods and leers and walks beside me, yet apart from the parking lot to the road. And one more time he says, mumble, mumble, wanna let me slurp, mumble. And he gestures toward his car, opens his arms and smiles to indicate my bountiful size and tastiness. He punctuates with a lewd pelvic twitch. I put up a hand and say, no. And if you have something to say to someone, speak up and say it. I am irritated to be waylaid. I'm wearing sandals and a sundress, uncombed hair, previously unconscious of my appearance as I quickly left the house. And even now, I would rather be thinking about what I'm making for lunch. I am not working today, and I don't want to be nice. Wanting to be left alone has come to feel selfish. This is not nothing. I have taken a day off from managing this behavior, but he has not taken a day off from pursuit. I feel pressed into service, and the beets bound for juicing are heavy in my bag. Then his car is beside me, riding slow. He persists, mumbling and slurping like a hungry fool. I say, please go away. And he leaves, but circles around and back again. I am about a block from my home. I think, oh, hell no, you are not following me all the way to my house. We are in my neighborhood, surrounded by people I know within shouting distance. Or is it perhaps the absurdity of his age and approach that raises my ire? I perceive him as a child who requires correction, and so I stop, irritated and parental, to speak to him through the open passenger side window. A few feet from the car, I am speaking loudly enough for him to hear me clearly. I say, okay, look, what you are doing here is creepy. You are actually following me home, and I am not having that. I am on foot. You are following me in a car. Creepy. If you want to ask someone for sex, ask someone who seems like they want sex, not someone who is out grocery shopping. Ask in a tone of voice and a volume that can be heard. And if a person is not interested in your advances, then go away. I am in full oratory now, and he is still leering and gesturing with his chin, and then slowly he begins to look more at his lap. And look, I say, someone needs to tell you this, because I don't know why. Maybe you're too young to know better, and I am old enough to be your mother. In fact, who is your mother? Do you live around here? Does your family live near here? We live in a small community, and what you are doing is creepy. To which he says, chin on chest, I'm sorry, ma'am, and drives away. I call after his car, that's better. And I carry my groceries home. See, in my youth, before I knew better, I accepted my mother's admonitions that I dressed too provocatively. I accepted friends' and teachers' assessments that I was cultivating an outlandish look that would draw weirdos. As a teenager, I would shake my head and say, yeah, I'm a weirdo magnet. Maybe it's because of how I look. Now, the term weirdos may be appropriate to describe the men who feel the need to gawk and talk and threaten and compliment and proposition and divert my time and energy. It is weird, though common. But this language conceals important things: gender, habituated gendered behavior, male bonding rituals, gender socialization. Look, it is not that I attract weirdos. It's not even that I attract men. It's that often, really often, men feel entitled to objectify, belittle, harass, talk to, flirt with, proposition, and bully any women they choose. Now, I have on occasion attracted mere weirdos. I was once sitting in a cafe, writing in a notebook, bare feet up on the chair, flowing clothes and, you know, multicolored hair falling around me. A woman walked up and said, "I saw you when I walked in. I am a witch, and you are a vibrant, sensual being with an important message for humanity." I looked up at her and I thought to myself, "Oh, now you're a weirdo, and maybe the way I look attracted you." I said, "Okay, thanks. So I'm sitting here doing some quiet writing. I'm not really interested in conversation, but you know, if you want to pull up a chair, we can share this table." And she did. We did our own things. When I stood to leave, we exchanged names and pleasantries, and she said a few more freaky things. See, that is what an exchange with a weirdo looks like. But the way men treat me when they choose to engage in street harassment, that has nothing to do with me. You know, what you're talking about doesn't happen to all women. My girlfriend said this one day as I rehearsed a story for a reading about street harassment. She's a bit older than I am and could only recall a handful of men who had ever catcalled her whole life. She said she liked it. It made her feel like a part of a group of women to which she didn't always feel she belonged. I looked her up and down, you know, trying to put on the male gaze. "You're scary," I concluded. She's 6'2". She wears men's clothes, and if she's in a bad humor or simply walking alone, she looks like she could kick your ass and not be sorry. I love some of those things about her. She doesn't always read like she's a woman or a target. She doesn't always receive the behavior. Her demeanor deflects the entitlement that many men feel. Now, me, I don't fight, I don't run. I've never been extra fast or extra strong, and just like my girlfriend, I sometimes enjoyed street harassment as a young person because my culture taught me that fat girls would never get love. And there is something about street harassment that feels like a precursor to love, attention. I mean, if you're invisible, how will you get love? This is what we manage, along with social expectations on the street. How can I keep the attention I think I need and direct it? Not get hurt, not be used. It's up to me to attract it and deflect it and incite men to be wonderfully wild, yet prevent them from being savage. I am the conductor for an entire cultural orchestra of gendered behavior. That is what I learned. Even at age 11, when my body turned from child to fireworks, I was supposed to be an expert conductor of male behavior. That's what we all learned. I'm going to stop there.
Woo! So good. So good. So many thoughts.
Just beautiful.
Like Lidia, I grew up Catholic and I was always afraid to be rude. I would have never spoken to that man because I would have felt rude.
Well, yeah, the man who was driving beside me on the way home, that's an interaction that would have looked different when I was 30 than when I was 50. Because, you know, I'm just like, you are acting like a creepy child and we're just not doing this.
But we don't give the F's anymore.
Yeah.
That's such a profound thread too, though, that It's the pressure on a girl into woman to curate and manage and navigate the behaviors of men without there being any kind of counter narrative for boys and men growing up. It's the sole job to both attract and curate what comes. That's just my whole gut resonates with that. Yeah.
Oh, I just think it's so common, and across cultures. Sadly, there are so many world cultures where that is at play.
So I'd like to open it up for questions. If anybody has a question, we've got about, we have all the time in the world, actually. I could keep talking to you guys forever. Is there anyone in the audience who has a question? There's nothing in the chat so far. Mary, I put Kimberly's Instagram link in the chat as other places to see her videos. TikTok, by the way, sells books, just so you know. The publishers are now releasing TikTok, our top TikTok books.
I've seen that, and I've tried to hashtag the book talk. I put up a notice about today's reading there, but I don't seem to have any book talk people in there.
Yeah, I don't know. My friend Jenny, who owns Wacoma Books in Hood River, she has a whole table of TikTok books that sell.
Yeah. So on TikTok, I'm noticing somebody's asking about that. I'm the real Kimberly Dark, and the reason is because somebody already had Kimberly Dark. Pretty much every goth girl named Kimberly has a Kimberly Dark account. So, I always tell people, like, on Facebook and stuff, like, oh, you'll find me. I'm the one that isn't 15 and all in black. I'm that one.
Yeah. All right. Well, it doesn't look like there's any questions. Lidia, do you have any wrap-up questions?
Kimberly, what do we do about the state of the planet and the world?
Oh, just a little question.
And true love. I want to know about true love, if you could throw that in.
Okay. State of the world, true love. Let me cue those up. Honestly, I think one of the things we do about the state of the world is to wake up every day and remember that we are creating the culture. Right. And that is it's not satisfying every day. I'm not promising that at all. But I think it is useful. I think it's useful to remember that and to behave accordingly. And one of the cool things is that once you start practicing, acting like you are part of what creates the culture, it's like practicing anything. It starts to come more naturally, and you find yourself in small interactions and sometimes large ones where people go, oh, right, and it's also a model for then how they can interact. I mean, I've been doing that a long time, and people come back and tell me that works, that they started doing the thing themselves. And so we need more of that. And there's that. So, and then love. Wow. But seriously though, I do want to say some of the essays in this book, some of them are kind of about, they're about social issues, right? But then sprinkled through are also essays about my love life and my my attempts at love, and sometimes maybe because I feel like my attempts at love and my ability to be loved are solid. What's not so solid is comfort. And longevity, and I think that sometimes that stuff is more directly linked to damage, is more directly linked to you know, some of the choices I make that maybe are not the greatest, that maybe come from, I don't know, psychologists might tell me that they come from what I'm comfortable with from my, you know, the miserable parts of my childhood. I don't know. But I want to explore those things alongside social issues because they're related. Like, yes. We're not, you know, we're not like just, we're not somehow different in our personal lives than in the rest of our lives. And look, I'm happy that, you know, that I've had some great relationships with people who still love me, even though the relationship changed, and I still love them, and there is an enduring thing there. But I am still looking for a little more comfort in my, in the realm of love, and to the extent that it might be helpful to others, I'm willing to make some of that public in a book like this.
Right. And when we started, did I turn myself off? No. When we started, I said, for me, this book is also a love story. And that's what I meant when I said it. But it's a love story that's authentic to the person living it, not some romance schlock on TV or in a movie. And I appreciated the love story threaded through the social issues because that's fairly profound for me.
And speaking of love, Lucy has a question. Would you please update us on how the daddy love plays out these days politically among the alt-right and the perpetual adoration of Donald Trump?
Okay, first, I can't answer all of that. I have a lot to say on that topic, actually. But let me just say, you are asking exactly the right question. Like, that is the question that we need to be talking about. So I wrote a book a few years ago called The Daddies. You can find it online. It's published by an academic press, but still expect an experimental text that is, you know, not academic. But the thing about, one of the things that I was exploring in The Daddies is what are all of the ways that this trope comes up in US culture? Because we all know there's a difference between saying father and saying daddy. And that when we talk about daddy, that can be your father, it can also be your lover, it can also be your God, it can also be your president. You know, that there's ways that we relate to this idea of nurturer dominator that is pervasive in our personal lives, in our sexuality. I'm talking collectively now, like, you know, your mileage may vary, but collectively, there are ways that we relate to that are not just about us as individuals. Right, it's about kind of, you know, some bigger things. So yeah, one of my favorite reviews of The Daddies commented that, oh, I think this writer has finally explained why so many white women voted for Donald Trump. And I was like, yeah, I was trying to warn you about that, but you know, that's this is the thing, right? He one of the things that he is, I think, is he is the look, he's going to hurt you, you know that. Like, you can see that coming a mile away, and yet he also makes 100 promises and tells you you're pretty, and is playing on power, you know, in a way that, like, even if you can see it's hollow, there's something about it you want. And that's not accidental, right? He is also a product of this culture. And yeah, so I think you are asking the right question, but I'm gonna stop yakking about that. But yeah, we're still in that place. And I'm a little worried, actually. I mean, I love not seeing him. I love not hearing his voice anymore. But I am a little worried that there are still people who are, you know, at that altar, and we're just not as, they're not on the, you know, well, they're not on the news I watch, so.
Well, they're not on the island, are they?
Oh, there's many things that are not on this island, which is why I live here.
Yeah.
You know, I like to visit the rest. I like to visit the United States, but I consider myself an immigrant to Polynesia. You know, this is a colonized, I mean, this should not be a US state. This is a colonized part of Polynesia that has its own culture and history. And I'm grateful to have felt embraced here in a number of ways, but I definitely consider myself an immigrant rather than an American in the 50th state. That's a little creepy.
I was just crossing Lombard to get to my car, and a Humvee with American flags on both sides was like doing a showdown with me crossing the street. And I was like, really?
Yeah, I was going to say a second ago, for Christine and I, they're down the block.
Yeah, they're down the block with their flags. I mean, you know, I
got to tell you, the Trump voting contingent is here too, even though this is a solidly blue state and they are a minority. I was astonished at the brash audacity of the demonstrations, the Trump flags, that in Hilo. You know, Hilo is, I mean, Honolulu is a big city, right? That's on a different island from where I live. Hilo is the second largest city in the state of Hawaii, and it has about 60,000 people. So that's for scale, right? Like, we don't have any big city here. Maybe 70,000, I'm guessing, but you know, it's not a big place, and there were still those folks, and they are also the same folks who are, you know, very into the American flag being planted here. Like, we're literally in Polynesia. Like, there's a geography problem when people go like, oh, it's part of the United States. Like, no, we're halfway between North America and Japan.
Yeah. Well, 5:04, any other questions before I mean, I could keep going because there's like so much here right now to talk about, but does anybody else from our home audience? I feel like Alex.
I feel like this goes without saying that you all probably already are reading and loving Lidia's books, but I just want to say it anyway. You know, when we first met and were working together, it was like, oh right, you're another part of me, and I so much cherish you and your work.
And you have a new book coming, right?
What?
You have a new book coming, don't you? After
Verge?
Oh,
it's in the editing matrix and in this publishing chute. So it's sort of like this strange, gooey, you know, like there's blood and muck. And at the other end, maybe in a year, it'll pop out. But I'm done with the creation part.
Yay. Yeah.
Didn't that sound appealing?
Well, yeah, it actually is real.
Yeah. I mean, Kimberly, you had talked about the editors taking out all the meat of your story, and our book group decided to read Raymond Carver, what we talk about when we talk about love, and then also compare it to Beginners, which was what we talk about love before it was edited. And wow, right? The meat just got pulled out. And I've worked in publishing my whole life before I owned a bookstore. And the egotism of editors sometimes was crazy. Well, we know what's right. Like, it's not going to sell if you take that out, right? Just, I don't know.
Depends.
You know, isn't that a thing though? The question about who knows what will sell. You know, I think to the extent that we are making the culture as we go, sometimes they're right and sometimes they're not right. But you know, I also am a person who, as we've already established, I'm not young, right? And it took me forever to get a first book out. I mean, like forever, because I couldn't figure out how to like mush it together in a way that somebody wanted to, you know, so you know, I was performing stories on stage forever before, like decades, you know, and I guess part of what came of that though is that I do feel okay about saying no when somebody wants to take something apart, and I go, hey, no thanks, I'll just take that somewhere else because I think this is the way it's supposed to be. But that said, I mean, you know, Charles Weigel at AK Press is a wonderful editor, and I really think he improved this book, and I think that is a brilliant job when it is done well. You know,
Yeah.
we need those folks for sure.
Yeah, there are brilliant editors. I don't mean to say that there aren't.
Oh, I know you didn't. I know.
Well, my chickens are trying to come in the house, so it's probably time to wrap up.
Love it.
I just like want to hang out with you guys. Like we should just have Zoom wine or something. Thank you so much for honoring Two Rivers with your event and your books. And I hope to sell tons.
Thanks for having us. Thanks, Lydia.
Yeah.
I love you.
Thanks, Lydia. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.